So we would be going right now to the third session. I'm talking about the conversations that we've already been having. It's going to take a different dimension at this point. We've had 2 rounds of presentations. The first session was 1 round of presentations from 3 speakers. And then the second session was another round of presentations from 4 speakers. And about this time, we want to have a session that is more engaging. That is why this is a panel discussion focusing on scaling up success. In this session, practitioners involved in ongoing mangrove protection and restoration projects will share successes, lessons learned, and challenges. So I'll be inviting to the panel 4 panelists and a panel chair who will be talking to this issue. Our topic for this panel session is scaling up success. Permit me to first and foremost invite the panel chair for this session. No other person but the country director for SDN, Florence Ibokabasi. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Nabi Nubari, Executive Director, Center for Environment, Human Rights, and Development. To join them, we have Head Oil Spill Cleanup and Remediation, Inspectorate and Enforcement Department, Rivers State Ministry of Environment, Dr. Moses Berei-Weriso. My apologies. And to join them, we have the representative of IREP, the person of Mr. Uche Izuchukwu, Mangrove Restoration Officer. All the way from Green Coach, we have Mr. Edem. So in this session, the chair would definitely guide and lead the conversations and the discussions. Over to you, Madam Chair.
I have a very distinguished panel today. Our focus is going to be on the work that's done on mangrove protection and restoration, the issues that have arisen out of that work, recommendations for next steps, lessons learned, and obviously the challenge. I mean, it's exciting. We all know this. So I will start right now with a representative from the Oil Spill Cleanup and Remediation Inspectorate and Enforcement Department, the head of that department, Dr. River State has actually been identified as one of those where there's significant oil pollution, which has been a key driver of mangrove loss. I'd like to hear from you about what the River State government is actually doing in terms of remediating the environment, and also issues that have arisen as a result of your efforts, and perhaps how you intend to work with the federal government and other agencies to have perhaps a broader cleanup of the state. Thank you.
Madam, basically avoided mentioning my name. Probably she will not pronounce it very well. I want to be recognized. What's my name, madam?
Dr. Moses Berei-Weriso.
Thank you. It's right. Yes, the ministry is actually not an implementing ministry, it's a policy ministry, policy making ministry. And we implement our policy with supervision and monitoring. My department, Inspectorate Enforcement Department, is in charge of any oil that's spilled in River State, and to see that that spill is cleaned up. Now, the process of cleanup has a lot of steps to be followed. First, when this oil is spilled, the facility owner will inform the ministry and other regulatory agencies. And a GIV team will be formed. And visit will be made to the sites. Now, at the sites, there are some field data to collect. First, what is the cause of this spill? Is it equipment failure? Is it sabotage? When that is established, then there and then we'll make sure that that leak point is repaired. Because the possibility of continual leaking is as high as 90% if it's not repaired. And our policy said that any oil spill in River State must be reported within 24 hours. That, which means any IOC that refuses to make such reports by law have to face the penalty. In fact, that's what I asked earlier. Which policies to be implemented? Is it in federal or the states? At the state level. Because that has caused a lot of conflict. Probably not only in my states. Now, when that has done, that we know that the cause of the spill and it has declined, the policy said not more than 30 days, there must be cleanup. Reason being that no processes in awarding contracts and all that has to be done. But before then, there should be what we call containment measures so that there'll be no further spread of the spill. Once that is done, contracts have been given. They now do the cleanup. After the cleanup, and the cleanup, I want to differentiate between cleanup and remediation. As for oil spill, cleanup is removal of the free face oil. Because when oil spills, particularly on land, some fraction of the oil will percolate into the soil. And that cannot be removed by mere mopping or pumping. Once the cleanup is totally done, then there will be another assessment to know the effectiveness of the cleanup if there will be need for remediation. Now, when you find out there's need for remediation based on the assessment, but the assessment also includes collection of samples to the lab analysis to see if it's above the GAPSIM standards. Once it is above the GAPSIM standard, within the GAPSIM standard, there must be remediation of the soil. In this case, we are remediating the soil. Because the soil is the property that the community use to do their planting and others that they do. We'll make sure we enforce the community to show that remediation is done. Now, during the remediation, there are many processes that are involved. In fact, even HYPREP use different methods compared to that of share.
Doctor, I hate to interrupt you here, but I would also want you to come from a perspective of being practical.
Okay.
What specific efforts are you actually making in trying to control oil pollution, especially in sites where mangroves should have been actually growing, but they are not? Whether the government itself has a specific policy thrust in addressing this, especially beyond Ogoniland, where there is a large-scale cleanup process taking place.
Yeah, the Israel state government have policy. Now, as we know, the implementation of policy is another issue. Having policy is one, implementing is another one. The monitoring of the mangrove ecosystem, it is a very, very difficult one. Because you know, our active boys, they are more in the mangrove than on land. So it needs a lot of challenge, security challenge. So the ministry, at our own level, partner with the community. But the question is, who are those that are causing this spill? Are they from the community? That's a challenge to have. Thank you, madam.
All right. Thank you very much. I will get
Come
back to you. Yes, on some possible recommendations, particularly from the state government level and working with the federal government, working with legislators, whether at the state and federal level, and working with other government agencies.
Sorry.
Thank you. Over to you, Uche. As a mangrove restoration officer at Hybrid, I get emails from you on a weekly basis, and I think almost daily, stating how many mangroves are actually being planted. However, we'd like to hear from you about your experience in mangrove restoration and also the challenges in ensuring that the mangroves actually remain protected, and any interesting models that perhaps you're implementing that we can learn from and that you can also scale. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Uche Izuchukwu. I represent hydrocarbon production and mitigation project. And to your question, before we plant mangroves, we actually remediate. So if the area is not remediated, we don't plant. So where we are currently planting, we do remediate, but we went there, tested soil, we did physical assessment, and we saw that most of those areas are naturally attenuated and could support the growth of mangroves. So we delineated some of those areas. And areas we felt we could plant, instead planting without remediation. But be rest assured that those areas are fully ready to support the growth of mangroves. From our experiences so far, we started our pilot project in Bomu. Bomu is a small community in Bokana. I wouldn't really say small, but no Ogoni community is small, as small as they are, and really get down heavy on it. But our experiences so far has been one that we can't do anything without carrying communities. The people needs to be involved in every step of the way. And that's what we've done. Before we started planting, we had to train about 90 community members on nursery management and nursery practices. We also give them stipends to set up some of these nurseries. And not only do we give them stipends, we also monitor the nursery setup and help them see that these nurseries are thriving. And we've given out contracts in Bomu to contractors to plant. We also mandated those contractors to buy 70% of the seedlings they'll be planting from those local communities. And not just that, we also pay price. So we have made millionaires out of people that ordinarily have seen a million of life. We have empowered community in that aspect. And that's just one of the aspects we are helping. We've also employed 540 community workers and attached 60 of them to each of the contractors. So what they do is they help the contractors plan, clear the land, break the area, break up our ground. Okay, my slide is showing the soil, and these 60 people are being paid daily, and they're being paid a reasonable amount daily too. That's our direct pay. We're also having direct ways the community have also benefited from the Mangrove restoration project. Waste management outsourcing strictly to the community, supply of water, supply of food. This thing is a community management. So in that aspect, really brought the community up along. And our planting has started, like she said, we are not hiding anything. When it comes to government, people are always skeptical. If you say you planted this, people be like, it's a lie, it's not doing anything. We've carried other stakeholders along. SDN, said, Swire, the River State Ministry of Environment, Nostra, NCRC. After planting, after 30 days, we take them to our planting zones. They are assessing the dust and determine is this particular location fit enough for further monitoring. So most of these things we do, and we've been transparent. The results are there. We are open, and we are implementing the PMI model. Fortunately, I was part of the PMI. It was the first large-scale mangrove restoration project in the Niger. It was a success, and that model is what we're using. And so far, so good. The results have been fantastic. Thank you.
You mentioned that some community members have become millionaires as a result of the mangrove restoration and protection project that you're embarking on. I have two questions. The first question is, how are you addressing repollution of the environment? Because that is a significant challenge in the cleanup process of Ogoniland. We're aware that there's still some activities of artisanal oil refinements. How is that being addressed? Because that does have the potential to reverse some of the gains that you have made. Secondly, as you talked about the people who have become millionaires, how is this going to be sustained long after the Hyper project actually ends? What is your sustainability plan? Thank you. Just let's do questions briefly.
Thank you. Good question. For artisanal refinery, we've had challenges of the pollution most of our site. And for hybrid, there's so much we can do. We actually have a livelihood program that have tried to, in conjunction with SDN and USAID-led, that have tried to bring up together some of these artisanal refiners. We have set up skills for them. But the truth is, you can't really get everybody. You make so much money that whatever you do, some of them will still be there and tap those pipes. But we are doing the much we can. We're also carrying security agencies along, consulting them. And I think they are the key to stopping it. You can stop it, I'm sure we'll be fine. Then for our sustainability plan, we not just set them up. We have the 90 workers we train. We're also helping them manage the ticket. Our project is not just going to end in Bomu, it's actually a pilot project. So we have brought them together, they form a cooperative. We've taught them how to manage money. We've taught them how to divest their fund. We've also taught them wherever they are going to plant, people can set up seepage in a feasible manner, considering the local communities there too. So we are also helping them become entrepreneurs in Niger, teaching them more about markets and how else not to.
All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing this really interesting model. Yes, thank you. Dr. Nubari, we're aware that SED actually created a very interesting community-centered approach towards mangrove restoration and protection. We'd like to hear if it's something to what Hyper is doing, or you have something that is entirely different, and some very important lessons that you have learned working as a civil society organization in River State and other parts of the Niger Delta on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. I am Dr. Nadia Francis, coordinator SED. To respond to, I think, SED, for more than 2 decades, we've been involved in monitoring, documentation, and research around mangroves in Niger Delta. And over the years, we identified communities. Initially, we started with Kono. That was in 2010, where the entire mangrove forest was invaded by Nipapa. We went in, and our approach, like I said, is actually community-centered approach. We identified that because we know once there is ownership, once the community have a proper understanding, that look, we have a part to play, and they buy in, then their work is made easy. So our approach has been around advocacy, training, enlightenment, and once we get that through, we go into the process proper. And again, we work with principle. We know that to do a proper restoration of mangrove loss, we have embarked the principles of ecological mimicry. We try to identify species and try to put them the way they were, even when that's what we call the communities. You go to comments, pictures are up in my slide. We have a lot of success there. We also replicated this in Ubuntu when we also brought it into our community science. And over the period, we identified, like, you have a teeming population who have abundance around them, but their approach to it is wastage. there hasn't been so much around sustainable harvesting. And because there is over-dependence on the mangrove as a means of life, there seems to be a lot of loss. Now, when hybrid came up, before this, we at the forefront of the Bodo story. I don't know how many of us have the stories around the Bodo oil spill. Yeah. So between 2008 and 2009, there was two major spill that caused massive degradation of loss of mangrove loss. In fact, there was total fluctuation of the environment, max ecological loss. Said was at the forefront. We championed this cause. We logically confronted perpetrators together with Amnesty International. The matter was taken to UK court, and for more than 5 years, there was eventual victory for the community. And for the first in history, that community, over 7,000 people received massive compensation individually in relation to the community. We went further to discover that the only way to sustain the approach we brought in was to develop a user-friendly training manual. I think with a copy of it. We also have it so. And we kept doing that. So that has been our community-centered approach. We also went into schools and developed environmental clubs where those in terminal classes are brought together and they are taught on tree planting and the importance of mangroves. We did a lot of teaching and education on what mangroves are. We did a lot of teaching on what the tidal area, that area where mangrove thrives. You need to understand that mangrove is not just a plant, it's also a habitat where other organisms also thrives. And with what thrives around the environment, the tidal area where mangrove survives, if those organisms, the periwinkles, the oysters and the rest survives, of course, there's always a community. And when they are lost, there is one livelihoods. So this our policy approach has been. Then, just to conclude on your question, in terms of hybrid, yes, part of our work we monitor. We've been monitoring what hybrid have been doing. We've been part of their monthly contractor review program to see if the policy approach is being. And I think they are doing well in that regard. Because in each of the meetings, you have community representative, you have a HSC of each of the companies, and they did technical presentation, and we critique. When we see dump of waste, we are also interested on how those waste are being managed. When we see heavy growth of NIPA palm, we are careful to know what happened to the NIPA palm and what are the protocols, what are the waste. We needed to know what happened. I think that collective approach helped us. Yeah. So what are our challenges? Yes, challenges are always there. Number one, the major challenge we can really talk about here is the issue of repollution. Repollution has become, is actually a very chronic one, eating the process of the meat. It's like mopping the floor while the tap is on. Regarding addressing the actors, which is the ex-artisanal refiners, we've been part of it. We've had that previously. They yielded, but again, they've been exposed to so much funds in the past. And the major issue we have now is value reorientation, because they are yet to come to terms with the fact that what they are involved is private gain and public disaster. And that is where we are pushing. And the challenge, repollution is a key problem. Then, issue of community instability. Because in some communities, there seems to be some sense of entitlement. There are individuals who think they own the community. But what happened, the damages that are caused in the community happen to all. So because of that, the pace of work and intervention in certain communities are also on the low too. That is another challenge. Community stability is another challenge. Then over dependency on mangroves. Because most of the locals, this was their mainstay. Now nurseries have been lost. Bankers have been trained. But again, insecurity, security threat, because the major threat around the mangrove is both natural and the ones created. The one created from the spill have been contained, but there's a great pollution that is ongoing from others, equipment failure, and artisanal refiners. Recently, there is another major spill in Budon that is flowing all over the place from equipment failure on a major road that is spilling into the communities. So you have issues of great pollution, you have issues of community instability, you have issues of over dependence on the mangrove as a source of livelihood. And because of that, corrective measures to restrain activities becomes a challenge.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a comprehensive overview of the model, the challenges. We'll come back to you regarding some key recommendations.
Thank you.
Eden, last but not least, all the way from Cross River. Thank you for your patience. And we'd like to hear from you about some of the work you've done in Cross River. We know that there are quite a number of restoration projects taking place. If you could share with us briefly some interesting models, some key challenges, but also lessons learned, especially around the work that Green Code has done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. For us in Cross River in Green Code, what we have done is around the Cross River mangrove estuary. And starting from there, we initiated what we call Integrated Mangrove Forest Management Project, which was funded by the EU in collaboration with Concern Universal, then now Self-Help Africa. What we did in that project was basically to understand first the coastal community's perception around this unique species of vegetation, and then we realized that first they utilize it, but in terms of knowing the importance and the usefulness was very, very low. So, and again, so we did what we call rapid drivers assessment. That's to see what really drives the mangrove deforestation. And we realized that people within that region use the mangrove basically for firewood. It's a very huge market because the bakeries, the bread bakeries around Calabar or the southern part of Cross River uses the mangrove forest, the mangrove trees, because it burns both wet and when it is also dry. And up to the extent that the mangrove forest has been, it has disappeared, let's just put it that way, because of this massive firewood cut. So now people go as far as close to Cameroon to cut the mangrove and then bring it back to the shores of Cross River. And then because of that, some of them has been killed by gendarmes and also the sea pirates and the rest. So what we did was, from that study, we now initiated this, which we call the Integrated Mangrove Project. So we also brought in the aspect of awareness, creating awareness on the usefulness of this mangrove species, as well as also introducing alternative livelihood options for these communities. And this we did by also trying to look at catching them young. There are also young people coming up within this locality. So what we did in essence was that we interacted with the community to also know some of the livelihood they can actually look at as an alternative to a mangrove wood cutting. So some of them suggested bee farming and honey production, so which we also helped them in training them. We took them to Akwa Ibom, trained them, and then brought them back and empowered them, so they established that. We also looked at the other local livelihood activities around the region, which centered mainly on cassava production, as well as oil palm milling. So we also established those meal farms for them, and they did that. And then looking at catching them young, we also established about 25 green clubs in schools, both in primary and in secondary schools around the project catchment area. And then because the focus was basically on mangrove, so we tried to look at climate change as it relates to mangrove, because we also brought to the awareness that the mangrove forest is a very good carbon sink. Okay, so it doesn't need to be destroyed. and then looking at other aquatic benefits of that. So we drafted what we call a Mangrove Education Handbook, which was also distributed as part of that. So basically, those were the things we did, and the community people were also happy, as well as also planting a lot of mangrove seedlings in terms of the restoration. The challenges basically was how to clear the degraded area, because these degraded areas are already been taken over by NIPA farms, and some of them are very large. And then for you to have access and restore such area, you need to uproot it. And again, remember the topography and the land, this thing is very matchy. So even uprooting is a very big problem. So what we decided to do was to mobilize community and then cut them very low. But again, what we also learned from that was that the NIPA farms grows very fast, except you uproot them. So they grew very fast and then try to overshadow the new mangrove trees that we have done. So it now becomes very challenging mobilizing community every month to make sure that they prune the NIPA farm so that the mangrove seedlings newly introduced can survive. We had good success rates from there. Then other challenges has been the recent, not that quite recent, but I think it has become very, very rampant now. The insecurity due to the topography again. So the criminals, like the kidnappers and the militant, uses those areas as hideout because they know that it's a little bit challenging for the security agencies to gain access. So they use it as hideouts, and then it also hampers even fishermen and women gaining access, because some of these mangrove seedlings, we get them from the fishermen as they go. So during low tide, so they pick them up and then bring them upland. And so it was a little bit challenging. Then the issue around the immediate past government trying to introduce what we call the Bakassi Deep Sea Port. Okay, so the area has also taken up a lot of mangrove space, and we have been worried about that, because if that project really come to life, then a lot of activities will be going on there. We know activities that are associated with ports and the rest. So then the major challenge has been the NIPA farm. And then resources also, in terms of financial resources to continue this project. But what we did as part of sustainability plan, like I said, the green clubs are also going on, and the mangrove education manual is also helping to create awareness even when we are out from a particular location. Then because of this massive awareness, other NGOs also saw the need and saw the importance to also continue this. So we now have other organizations like Ngosi and the rest coming in to continue. Some of them are also continuing from some of the project communities that we have left. So that for us is a very huge sustainability aspect. And then the livelihood options we introduced are also going on. So that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, NM. I would like to open the floor to questions. We'll probably take about 4 questions. I don't know when the moderator is, because he's a timekeeper as well, just to see how we're actually doing with time. An interesting summary here of the different models. You can see there are common challenges, but there are also different challenges. In rivers, it's basically a lot to do with oil pollution and repollution. When a land is being remediated in Cross River, it has a lot more to do with the Niger palm and also perhaps limited alternative livelihoods. So I would like to open the floor now for questions. I think you will coordinate that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please state your name and organization and who you're directing the question to. Thank
So I see about 6 hands all together. So you probably take, please, if you're raising your hand, can you indicate well? Yes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5. So I think we can safely take 2 rounds of questions because we do not have so much time. So let me start from that end this time around. Okay, so we'll start with Christabel.
My question goes to Hyper.
Obviously.
So you tell me that you grow mangrove, right? Where at Niger Delta Bar? Mhm. So you just go ahead and grow, bar?
Yes, we plant mangroves.
Mm-hmm. Like
We
that?
don't just go ahead and grow, like I said,
Mhm.
engage community. We train community people to grow the support. We pay contractors. We follow standard PPP processes, and the same community members to plant those. Yeah, that's how.
What's the survival rate?
Currently, we started planting in March, and we'll be doing one more monitoring with the stakeholders, not NPRs. I can tell you we've had greater than 95% survival rate.
I would love to see a representation of that. But I also wanted to ask, how do you manage this mangrove? How do you manage it? How do you manage the reforestation of the mangrove? How do you manage it? How do you engage the community into
Sorry, let me intervene quickly. It would probably help if you ask
all the questions at the same time?
Yes, so that it can. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just answer.
Mhm. Yes, one more question. Then you said that one of the challenges you have is that most of the people in the community, they are rich already. You said something like that. Okay, so there's a difficulty in telling them, creating awareness on the mangrove, isn't it? You said so.
So what I said is, it's not a challenge. We train people.
Okay.
Targeted campus to buy from them. So
Okay.
take them away.
That's make them millionaires. Okay. Okay. So why don't you use the mangrove as a means of wealth for the community? For the community as a whole. I just want to propose that. Yes.
One was planted.
The mangrove that's the particular environment in which you find yourself in. Can you use that as a way of making wealth for the community?
Goal of restoration. Yes, the practicing carbon credits for community.
Okay.
The mangroves are going to provide livelihood for the community.
Okay.
The mangroves will help them economic wise, social wise, cultural wise. That's the goal. That's the larger goal.
And you've
Okay,
communicated that to the mangrove. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. We don't want it to be an interview.
Okay.
We'd rather you just yes, drop it and then we move on.
Okay.
In fact, I wanted us to take like 2-3 questions together so that
Okay.
the panel will then respond. So I guess we are good with you. If there are more, we can always do that afterwards.
Okay.
Yes, afterwards. Thank you very much. So we go to the next. Yeah, I'm coming from this end, so I think I go to Dr. Noja's table with the lady first. Yes.
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. I'm actually Joyce Kitakan from Federal Ministry of Environment, Department of Forestry. I am the national focal point for mangrove ecosystem and livelihood under the Commonwealth Blue Charter. But my intervention goes to the last speaker, Mr. Eden. I think there's a solution to the invasive species, the Nipah palm. When we came into service, the Abidjan Convention, which is a regional convention that ensures the protection, conservation of the coastal and marine environment of the West Central and Southern African region, came up with a project called the Guinea Coral Large Marine Ecosystem. And during the second phase of that project, it was on the eradication of the Nipah palm in order to restore the mangrove ecosystem. But at the end, is that the water plant can actually be utilized. How do we do that? It can be used for biofuel. It can also be used as alternative in restoring the mangrove. How? It can be used in the manufacturing of alcohol, ethanol, boating, shoes, flooring, and even for firewood. So instead of it, I think we should sensitize the communities on how they can use it. Thank you.
Should I make, I'm not just like answering her. It is very, you are very correct. But if we want to look at quantitative analysis, the impact of the mangrove or the NIPA compared to his utilization, and then also putting it side by side with the economic and every other benefit that is associated with the mangrove tree.
Yes.
Then you will agree, and you will agree that it needs to be, the spread needs to be turned. And the way it is going, because like the, I think Dr. mentioned, blue, yeah, the way it spreads, because once it dries, the seed dries up, it floats on water. When high tide comes to the shore, it takes them, and that is why it is spreading. And the way it is going, like I said, if you come to Calabar Mangrove Estuary, before you see, like, let's just say 10 kilometers stretch, or even 5 kilometers stretch of pure mangrove tree. And then it is very, very threatening to the coastal communities compared to whatever economic importance of utilizing NIPA palm can be. So let's look at it. When we are talking about economic benefit or the utilization of NIPA palm, let's put it side by side with the economic benefit and the natural benefit of the mangrove tree. So that is just my, the cost benefit. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, we go to.
Yeah, so I will just quickly write on what she pointed out, because my interest also was also on the Nipah palm. You see, Nipah palm is just displaying a typical habit of an invasive species, and is replacing the mangrove habitat. Is replacing the mangrove species, and I think as we are the projection as we are going, Nipah palm invasion will be one of the worst threats to the mangrove ecosystem, not even the habitat, not even the deforestation or the utilization. So is a serious thing that we need to look at. And I want to challenge the researchers amongst us. Yeah, they've talked about some of the uses that Nipah palm, because usually we are talking about mangrove because we know the uses. People are using it, that is why. Nipah palm is not being used. And it's, again, I'll talk about the enemy release hypothesis of invasive species, where it is coming from, it didn't come with its predator. So that is why it's growing in leaps and bounds. So I want to challenge USAID. USAID has convening power. You have your global office. This Nipah palm has a natural place it's coming from. There are some utilization that are happening there that people have been using. Can USAID use its convening power and its ability to drive this conversation? Because, as I'm saying, I want to emphasize again, whatever we are doing, whatever action we are taking, if we don't tackle Nipah palm, then it will be a major threat to mangrove ecosystem. So it's something that we need to really beam our focus on, so that the USAID can use its resources to be able to mobilize that. Even some of these small research that has been done, how can we scale it so that we will be able to stop the spread of Nipah palm? It's very important for us to put this on the table as one of the takeaways from this particular conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph. So yes, we have two more. Yes, we go over there and then last.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Omata David. I am the thematic lead for climate change and sustainability with the Nigerian Economic Summit crew. First, I would like to make a contribution. Now, in terms of the protection of the mangrove forest, I would want the practitioners and those involved to look at it from the angle of harmonizing interest that comes with it. When you look at the sustainable development goal which we want to achieve, for example, you would see that if you don't collectively put them together, the achievement of one may lead into hindering the achievement of another, and then you tend to create some trade-offs. As we see from the last session that they talked about the policy. So when you are creating policies, maybe protecting the SDGs 13 on climate change, the community or the stakeholders will tell you they would need to cut these mangroves for their survival, which is trade. And you will not totally blame them, because this will go also maybe in line with SDGs 8, economic activities, or SDGs 1, talking about poverty and the rest. So let's look at it from the angle of harmonizing all these policies together, so that whenever we want to do any policy or take any action on mangrove protection, we should be able to come up with a collective solution. Now, my question goes to a person from HyPrep, first from my left. Now, you talked about raising millionaires from your from your project. Yes, yes. Now, the millionaires you are raising, I was thinking from this angle that if these people have this money, right, and the money finish, they may cause some oil spillage again. So that they may cause oil spillage, or they will do whatsoever they can, so that they'll create another problem, right? And then you bring more money, and then you continue to raise these millionaires. Have you seen it from this angle that the financial incentives that you are trying to do, which would also boost like economic activities for these people, they may abuse it in a way and may not really provide a solution to your intervention?
Thank you. Don't respond now. We'll take the last. Yeah, exactly. So, are you good? Oh, thank you very much. So, go ahead.
Yeah, Ebuka Nwobi again. I think you all know me now. I have a question for everyone in the panel. So, my first question is to Dr. Moses. Do you have documentation of the processes you use for the cleanup and the remediation in mangroves? And do you know how effective they are? Because to my little understanding, oil spill is, a general thing, but I presume there are different types of hydrocarbon that is spilled in the process. So is there a documentation you have that would, at least for future, when this happens, we know how to tackle it rather than do a sort of trial and error basis? So do you have that documentation and the effectiveness of these oil spills? My second question is to Uche, HyPrep. You said one of the challenges you have is repollution from the oil spill. My question is, how are you tackling where you restore, just so that either it's upstream or downstream, to avoid that repollution? Because I presume you have data on maybe where the bunkering is happening, and then you can try and make sure, because if you're doing all these restoration sites, there are probably a lot of places. So how do you decide where you want to restore? How do you decide, right, it's Bomu community that is a pilot study, and how do you make sure that it's not at risk of repollution? How have you come to that decision of Bomu? To Dr. Nabie, is not here. Okay. My question is, for the River State axis, for said, have you thought about alternative source of livelihood? I know that it's been mentioned in Cross River, but especially if the millionaire question in hand is there, what are the other alternative sources of livelihood for your area that you can think of, rather than dependence of mangrove? And my last question is to you for NIPA. I just feel that there should be a way of, because the NIPA problem will always be there, as Dr. Joseph has mentioned. It's always going to be there. But what can actually help it not being more of a problem is if the mangrove that is intact remains intact. And you've mentioned so many means that you're going about it. But my question is there any other training on how they use the mangrove? Because I mentioned it earlier. One way to actually curb NIPA palm expansion is to control that mangrove loss. In your area, have you thought about doing some training that would result in at least keeping the mangrove stands there so that they can continue to compete successfully with NIPA palm? So that's all my question. What I will say for the entire panel is there's been some documents that have been mentioned throughout your panel. I think it would be good if we know if any of those documents are available, because it sounds like those documents are very interesting to read if another project is going to happen in future. So I think it'd be good that that document is made available. If it is an internal document, then we understand, but if it's something that can be shared publicly, I think that is one way, sharing that information could be beneficial for future mangrove projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have those two questions, the last two.
Okay, let me respond to the millionaire and civil question. That's one way to look at it. When you have an environment, you cost benefit. And that's why you do awareness. For these people who train, we call them banker. We didn't just train them to make money. We also train them to take ownership of those projects. No, I'm not longer because 5 years maximum. So it's where sensitization and awareness comes in. You should know that it's not just about you're here to also protect what you are doing. So when we are done, you can take over. And even planting things that we even if we are not there. So you understand how you feel, but we have taken steps to address that. And for the pollution issue, if you understand either environment, pollution could occur in other communities and still affect what they are doing. At the moment, that's what we're facing. Let's say there was a spill in the river. It was close to the that spill actually affected some of our mangroves. We also took steps in ensuring that all artisanal refining sites were prior before we started operating. So at the moment, there's none. But go to other countries, there's pollution, it's active artisanal refining. And sometimes the spill of these areas to come down to our area. So in some cases, there's not much we can do. We are doing everything within our powers to protect what we're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Yes, the question you raised has actually been our recommendation in giving any of the things we do. Doing that an angry man is a hungry man. A hungry man is an angry man. Teaching a man who has not eaten to change behavior from what they have been feeding him. It's a whole lot of challenge. So it has been the thrust of what we have been teaching the people from alternative source of livelihood by enlightening them on the benefits of the mangroves around them beyond what they know. Because when they are sleeping and they are complaining there is heat, and the entire community, you can stand here and 300 kilometers, 120 kilometers away, you can see the next person there because there are no tree. You understand obviously that there will be heat. Because a lot of them don't know that the heat they are having is from the global warming, which is mangroves sequester a lot of carbon, which is a major actor in these greenhouse gases that contribute to the heat we experience. So for the men, like the last interaction we had with external refiners, options we have for men and women. For men, we are promoting issues of borehole drilling, issues of tiling, because a good number of them, there are still building number ongoing. The ones that they are into as a refiner that have so much money building very wonderful edifice. So those that are into tiling, wall and plumbing are already getting job. Then for the women who take those periwinkle and are selling, they are the worst hit. So come on, a lot of them now are into fish farming, rearing the catfish and all that. And if you go to the neighborhood, they are selling little by little. And that's just, they have pots, ponds around them. Few. Some have gone into they have got POS and are operating POS and is self-employed, looking forward for better days when this environment is still respond. So thank you.
Thank you for the question. The ministry have documentation of all oil that's spilled in River State. And our intervention with the polluter depends on the area of spill. For the method of cleanup on land and that of the mangrove are the same. It's not the same. For instance, the one we're doing at border with share, they're using the flushing, scoping, and evacuation method. Now, that method is when in the mangrove, when oil spills, the mangrove, the river sediment is biopolluted. It accumulates and restores the oil here. So if you don't do agitation of that mangrove, the oil will remain there for hundreds of years. That's why we are using the flushing method. That with the high pressure flushing, the mangrove will be dissipated and the oil will flow up. And when it flows up, the oil is now contained and scoped and evacuated. So we have different methods we approach in different. But however, that's an experienced way also. That's what I also advise HyPrep, using the border experience. When you are planting after the cleanup, please, if there is any bullfire joint, sit there first. Because that's the mistake we find in border, where they first treated the area and planted. When they now went to the bullfire area, the oil drained down. And now they impacted that area and affected the new seedings. So I think that's one of the efforts we give HyPrep in their own approach. So I think it's a very wonderful one. And from our own ministry's calculation, Shell is to remediate 963 hectares of mangrove in Bordeaux. 963 hectares. And out of the 963 hectares, they are to revestate 860 hectares. And they are doing 2 meters by 2 meters, which means the 860 meters, they will plant about 2,900,000, almost 3 million seedlings. So by our calculation, if that seedlings grow, already we've done our own carbon credit implementation. But the most important is monitoring to avoid the repollution. And I believe HyPrep will take that's the problems of the border to make a better approach to this thing. But the real focus is carbon credits in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
Yeah, to Dr. Ibuka. For the mangrove to stand, so we really need to intensify the awareness. Okay, then move from the awareness level to practical. And two of the practical steps include community land use plan. So if community are introduced to community land use plan, and then the entire land space where they own are mapped out, because like I said, they depend on need for firewood and it sells a lot. Okay, so if they understand the community land use plan and then know that, okay, to also save them life and reduce the risk of traveling us on the high sea to the Cameroon borders to court, then they will imbibe it and then they will do everything positively to make sure that the regenerated mangrove stands. Okay, and then also introducing what we call community incentive for every mangrove community that stands, that allow their mangrove to stand. when you introduce incentive that comes in through like alternative livelihood, as well as carbon credit, which will be translated into cash in the future, then they will really imbibe and then understand why the mangrove needs to stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've run out of time. Thank you to our esteemed panelists and also to our participants on the floor. This has been a very interesting conversation, but also very sobering as we continue to discuss the realities of mangrove restoration and protection within Nigeria, from the policy level to the grassroots level, and in between. There is so much to unpack and so much to adapt to. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, panel chair. Would request for a group photograph. So you might need to come closer together. You can let go of the microphone now. Thank you very much for holding on to the microphone for the last 1 hour. So paparazzi, do we have them? All bright and smiling. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.